There's a knock at the door. Who could it be? That's one dirty little angel. Someone's gonna need a bath.
Dirty.
Hyenas do not treat their prey alive because they have very powerful jaws and sharp teeth that enable them to quickly tear through the flesh and muscles. They can easily break bones, allow them to access the marrow, which is the resource of nutrients. Hyenas eat prey alive due to their social structure. Hyenas are highly social animals that live in large clans. When a hyena catches prey, the whole pack will come to feast on it. By eating alive, the pack can feed together without worrying about them fighting over the carcass. African hyenas are very efficient hunters. By killing their prey quickly, they can avoid a long drawn-out fight. They don't likely leave one of the animal is jaw and unable to be eaten. This strategy enables them to get the most out of their hunt and maximize their food intake.
I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear.
A Texas prisoner was executed last night for the shooting of a San Antonio convenience store owner. 34-year-old Christopher Young said he never meant to kill Hash Patel in the attempted robbery. Patel's family insisted they did not want Young put to death. Young's attorneys filed for clemency, saying Young was not the same man 14 years ago, but that plea was denied. Young is the 8th person to be executed in Texas this year.
The state last night executed its first inmate of 2023. He was a former Missouri City cop who hired a hitman to kill his wife. Farah Frada, a mother of 3, was shot to death in her Atascocita home in 1994. Her husband, Robert, was later arrested and charged with a murder for hire plot. Prosecutors painted him as a sexual deviant who was motivated by a messy divorce, a bitter custody battle, and insurance money. Some of Farah's relatives witnessed the execution. 2 other people also received the death penalty in this case.
Hey, stop touching the child. You're going to cause more harm than there is done already. Do you understand?
Disturbing body camera video shows the aftermath of a deadly drunk driving crash in North Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, we want to warn you, the video and subject matter in this story may be upsetting to some.
The baby's over here. You've done enough. So you need to go on the other side.
On December 11th, multiple 911 calls came in about the massive crash.
It's on the street. It's a bad accident. There's a baby laying in the middle of the street and the mom.
Callers quickly informed dispatch about the child's severe injuries.
honey, we got a bad accident. A baby's gone.
When first responders arrived on the scene, they found 2 women in the front seat of the totaled vehicle and a child in the back seat. Another child was also found on the ground, decapitated.
Who else is in the car? There's a baby back there too.
Baby's back here, has no head.
The driver was identified as 25-year-old Kalia Manning, the aunt of the toddlers. Their mother was identified as the passenger, 23-year-old Rainisa Clydette Glenn Washington. The children, ages 2 and 3, were both killed as a result of their injuries in the crash. Later investigations found they had not been wearing seatbelts.
I tried to turn, the passing was missing.
Whatever.
Officials say Manning's blood alcohol content was 0.191, which is more than twice the legal limit. Both she and Glenn Washington were taken to the hospital and later arrested.
At this point, you are being placed under arrest, okay?
Are you serious?
Nope.
So you're not serious?
Oh, I am serious. I am serious, yes.
Both women now face multiple charges, and for Manning, it's 10 charges, including DUI resulting in substantial bodily harm or death. Reporting for Law and Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Fox 21 News at 9 starts now.
An El Paso County man is behind bars after allegedly raping a baby boy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nikki Wyrick.
And I'm Rachel Welty in for Joe Cole. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. We have more on the alleged rape in tonight's top story. Authorities say 27-year-old Sean McCormick from Black Forest was arrested for sexual exploitation of a child. McCormick allegedly raped an 18-month-old boy in 2009, videotaped it, and then distributed it online. Fox 21's Abby Berg picks up the case from there. Abby.
Rachel, these court documents out of Bakersfield, California describe the graphic abuse of the 18-month-old boy. They also highlight the incredible police work used to track McCormick down. According to the arrest warrant for 27-year-old Sean McCormick, police were led to him after a child pornography bust in Boston last November. During that bust, detectives found a video of a man, later identified as McCormick, raping what appeared to be an 11-month-old boy. It was later determined he was 18 months old at the time. Documents say the boy's hands were bound to his legs by electrical tape, but the rest of the details are too graphic to share. Throughout the 3-minute and 15-second long video, the baby can be heard crying. Police say at times the cries were muffled by McCormick's hand or tape. During an 11-month-long investigation, police used clues from that video to determine where and when the abuse took place. Police traced an episode of Family Matters and commercials playing in the background to March 28, 2009. Detectives also traced the furniture and a bathroom vanity pattern to room 221 in the Bakersfield Best Inn. Officers believe McCormick was staying with a family friend in Bakersfield at the time and took their baby to the hotel during the night without them knowing. Meantime, here in Colorado Springs, police were investigating McCormick for messages he sent to an undercover police officer in a chat room under the screen name Toddlers. On June 8, 2010, Colorado Springs police searched McCormick's Black Forest home on Vesey Circle and found 4,000 images and 365 videos of suspected child pornography. A folder was also found on his computer labeled My Kids that contained pictures and videos of the victim from the hotel. Documents say McCormick was released from Colorado State custody just last week. McCormick is now in federal custody and facing 1 count of sexual exploitation of a child. He is due in court in Denver tomorrow morning and faces extradition to California.
The oldest man in Tennessee on death row is scheduled to be executed tonight in Nashville. 72-year-old Oscar Smith is on death watch at Riverbend Maximum Security Institute. His execution was delayed 2 years due to COVID. He was originally sentenced to die on June 4th of 2020. Now, some background. Smith was convicted for the 1989 murders of his estranged wife, Judy Smith, and her 2 sons from a previous marriage, Chad and Jason Burnett. He was sentenced to death for all 3 killings. Smith is once again set to die by lethal injection. My colleague John North and I were actually at an execution several years back in 2018. Right. The most recent one, the execution of Billy Ray Irick from East Tennessee. John, let's talk about lethal injection versus electrocution. Some inmates on death row actually have that choice as to how they want to die between those two options.
They do, Robin, and some think that the worst of those two, if you will, if you can believe it, is lethal injection. They've argued for several years, and it's still an ongoing argument in the courts, that lethal injection, by the way that the state of Tennessee does it, creates great pain and suffering for the inmate as they're put under by the sedative. They contend that it creates a kind of a drowning sensation. The inmate can't convey that, but while they're sedated, they are essentially drowning in their own fluids from their lungs.
Nicholas Sutton, the last person to be executed in Tennessee, he died by electrocution.
He chose the electric chair, which is, again, I was at that one as well, and you know, that is one that many states in the United States have said, no, that is cruel and unusual, that is not okay, but it is an option in the state of Tennessee.
When it comes to executions, John, it's a very strict process, truly over the course of 3 days. Walk us through those.
It's very, very choreographed. That's for multiple reasons, legal and otherwise. As you mentioned, the inmate is moved from the main prison there, Riverbend in Nashville. They then go to close to the execution chamber to a special cell. They stay there 3 days. They're given the option of something like, do you want a last meal and what would you like it to be? There's a dollar amount set. There used to be a local fast food restaurant where some of the inmates would order their food. And then we come to this day, execution day, and there is a specific time in which all of this begins to take place. And it's very by the book. It is very choreographed, as I said, and they stick to that timetable.
It is a very somber day, as we know from 2018 with Billy Ray Irick.
It's extremely somber. I mean, out at Riverbend, it's often remote by itself, but this has always struck me in the two that I have been to. There's a kind of a hush or a quiet that descends on the prison grounds, and then when you go inside and you're interacting with the guards and the other personnel, you're like, you know that this is an extremely serious matter, and it's very quiet.
Indeed it is. Well, Oscar Smith is set to be the first person to be executed in Tennessee since the start of the pandemic. Currently, there are 47 inmates on Tennessee's death row, a total of 5 executions scheduled for this year. John, a convicted murderer from Blount County set to be executed in October.
That's right. Gary Wayne Sutton, that's coming up in October. WBIR will seek to be present for that one. That was actually, he was convicted out of Blount County, but there were 2 homicides involved in that one.
All right. Well, Oscar Smith and other death row inmates are granted, as you said, John, a special meal on the day of their execution. They can opt out of that last meal if they so choose. Limitations for last meals differ state to state. For example, in Florida, last meals cannot exceed $40, and the requested food must be available locally. We are told Oscar Smith selected a double bacon cheeseburger, deep dish apple pie, and vanilla bean ice cream as his last meal. Once again, Oscar Smith set to die by lethal injection shortly after 8 o'clock tonight at Riverbend Maximum Security Prison for the 1989 murders of his estranged wife and her 2 sons. We will have much more coverage on the execution coming up tonight on the Night Beat. John.
Robin, John, thank you.
Well, cruel and unusual is pretty specific. It's actually a constitutional right against cruel and unusual punishment. But Smith died this morning at exactly 10:20 a.m. Central Time. Lethal injection was the method. He told us this week that he did not request a last meal, though he really didn't explain why. And then when asked whether he had any last words, he reportedly said this: "Nah, I'm good." He had one person by his side, and only one person, Reverend Jeff Hood, his spiritual advisor. And Reverend Hood is kind enough to join me live now. Reverend Hood, thank you for being on. I know this is not easy for you because this is something that you vehemently oppose, and regardless of what you feel about the inmate, you feel that death is just wrong. Sanctioned death is just wrong. I just want to be clear about that. I'm not going to ask you to weigh in on the guilt or innocence of Michael Smith, but I do want you to explain to me sort of what happened today, the whole play-by-play.
Sure, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me once again. You know, this is, I'm very aware that Michael Smith is not the most sympathetic of figures. But I can tell you today was heartbreaking. There was certainly a lack of humanity involved, and there seems to always be a lack of humanity involved. I went into the chamber with Michael. I began to read scripture. One of the scriptures that he requested was in John 8, where it says, "You who are without sin, cast the first stone." We read the 23rd Psalm, where it says, "Thou anointest my head with oil." I applied oil to Michael's forehead, and we talked. He said he wanted to let his family know that he loves them. He once again proclaimed his innocence, as he has to y'all. And then he began to cry, and he began to, tears began to stream down the right side of his face. There's no doubt that he was, I can't speak to whether he was frightened or not, but I do know it was an incredibly uncomfortable moment. And, I felt like I was trying to provide peace, but, it's a very difficult thing to do when you're in the midst of someone who's, got IVs running out of them. They're strapped down to a table. The execution proceeded. And as the execution proceeded, I expected him to make a last statement. I expected him to once again proclaim his innocence. And so I was particularly surprised when he didn't. As we proceeded forth, once they decide whether or not they're going to make the last statement or they make the last statement, at that point, that's when the poison is supposed to start flowing, and it's supposed to be relatively quick from there. This was a little slower than what I've experienced. As you know, this is my 6th execution in 14 months. So I've seen this many times, and how this is supposed to go. It was slow. I think one thing, actually, I did want to point out is that in Oklahoma, one of the folks that I saw when the curtain came up was Attorney General Gettner Drummond. And Gettner Drummond and I, we probably agree on very little. Certainly disagreed about whether or not this execution should take place. But one of the things that Attorney General Drummond brings to this space when he attends these executions is the fact that, a lot of people who are involved in handing down these punishments do not witness these things. They don't engage in these things. And so, I think for everyone who was there, it's painful, it's unnerving. And, as we approached the end of the execution, I looked at Michael. I could tell that he was close to death, if not dead. And the last thing I saw was a little tear come out of the side of his face. Actually, I'm aware for a lot of your viewers, like it's, they don't have a lot of sympathy for this moment. But I do think that for me, having been there, it's not something that we have to do. It's not, we don't have to kill each other in order to teach each other not to kill each other. And I think that was something that was reinforced in me today. And lastly, I'll say that when I was on my way home from McAllister back to Little Rock, I'm having this image of Michael saying, why didn't you help me? Just it's an incredibly haunting and difficult thing to watch someone die and feel like you were supposed to preserve life. And I know that with the victims, I feel the same level of devastation.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Well, man faces first-degree murder charges in the deaths of his parents in West Knox County. Authorities have taken 28-year-old Joel Michael Guy Jr. into custody. Guy is a college student in Louisiana. The Knox County Sheriff's Office called the crime scene gruesome. Investigators say the parents suffered multiple stab wounds and were dismembered. The Sheriff's Office says the couple was last seen Friday. WBIR 10 News anchor Kendall Morris joins us from West Knox County, where the couple's remains were found in their home Monday.
Investigators say they received phone calls from people who work with Lisa Guy on Monday asking them to go check on her because she didn't show up for work that day. They came to this house on Golden View Lane only to find what is being described as a gruesome crime scene inside.
Just horrifying. Think the quiet neighborhood where everyone waves at each other and willing to help each other. This can happen on our street. It's just hard to believe that can happen.
In the small cul-de-sac of Golden View Lane, neighbors stood outside Monday night wondering why crime scene tape and law enforcement filled their neighborhood in West Knox County.
No one had any clue. Watching everything unfold with neighbors, speculating ourselves, trying to guess.
Neighbors watched as investigators went in and out of Lisa and Joel Guy Sr.'s house. A hazmat team arrived later Monday night.
We started figuring it out that something very tragic had happened. We just didn't know the extent.
It would be described as horrific, a very gruesome crime scene.
Sheriff's officials say they found the remains of the guys inside. Investigators say Joel Guy Jr. stabbed, cut up, and placed the remains in an acid-based solution to destroy evidence.
Some of us have seen scenes like this. They are very, very rare. It's in the 1 percentile of homicides in the United States that involve mutilation or dismemberment.
Investigators are still working to find a motive.
I don't think anybody can imagine to the extent of the horror that went on.
But for the people who live close to Golden View Lane, the crime scene tape that remains is a reminder of the neighbors they lost.
Everyone just needs to come together and pray for the family and everyone that knows them and give support any way possible.
Joel Guy Jr. was taken into custody yesterday in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That is where he is believed to be in college there. Officials expect to bring him back to Knox County in the next few days. Back to you.
This was an extremely disturbing set of facts and circumstances where you killed and dismembered this young lady, Ashley Young. Only her torso was found in the basement. The police, although they did an excellent job in this matter, working every possible lead, could never find Ashley's head, her hands, or her feet. You, sir, in my mind, are a very evil individual. You are clearly a monster without any conscience whatsoever, and you are someone who is a danger to society and should never be allowed free. Accordingly, it is the sentence of this court with regards to the second-degree murder that you be committed to the Michigan Department of Corrections to serve a minimum of 100 years to a maximum of 200 years. I am purposely doing this so that you will not be eligible for parole until you are at least 130 years old. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you don't already know me, I'm Fahim Saleh, the CEO of Gokada.
This is the last video 33-year-old Fahim Saleh posted to Instagram, making a passionate plea earlier this year for his motorbike ride-hailing company, Gokada, after a motorcycle transportation ban in Nigeria, where it's headquartered.
Gokada is not just a business to me, it's a mission.
The company remembering Saleh on social media as a leader, innovator, and inspiration, shocked by his death. We're told he was last seen on surveillance video Monday. Tuesday afternoon, police responded to 265 East Houston Street after Saleh's sister went to check on him, making the gruesome discovery. According to police sources, they have video of her arriving at the apartment about the same time his alleged killer was leaving. Investigators suspect the dissection and disposal of the body may have, by chance, been interrupted by her arrival, the possible ring of a bell from the lobby. Police sources also say they found his decapitated torso and other remains in black trash bags, and an electric saw was left behind.
It's horrific, disturbing.
The body found on the 7th floor here. Raphael Sai says he almost moved into this building last year.
It's crazy that that would have happened so close to where I could have possibly lived.
It's also believed Saleh was killed before his body was dismembered.
I can't imagine. My heart goes out to his family. Or friends, anyone who knew the guy.
As Saleh's Instagram points out, he was dreaming big, founder of several companies and an investor. While the motive for the murder is still unclear, we're told cops are probing his business practices to hopefully get to the bottom of who did this and why.
A visual was held Friday for a 10-month-old Maryland girl who died in West Virginia back in 2016 after police say her mother's boyfriend raped her. Emma Lee Barringer was remembered at Glen Haven Memorial Park in Glen Burnie. The man accused of committing the act, Benjamin Taylor, is awaiting a trial for murder charges in West Virginia. Taylor reportedly told deputies he took the baby to the basement of an apartment while doing laundry. He claims he blacked out and doesn't know how the baby's injuries occurred.
Fox 21 News at 9 starts now.
An El Paso County man is behind bars after allegedly raping a baby boy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Nikki Wyrick.
And I'm Rachel Welty in for Joe Cole. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. We have more on the alleged rape in tonight's top story. Authorities say 27-year-old Sean McCormick from Black Forest was arrested for sexual exploitation of a child. McCormick allegedly raped an 18-month-old boy in 2009, videotaped it, and then distributed it online. Fox 21's Abby Berg picks up the case from there. Abby.
Rachel, these court documents out of Bakersfield, California describe the graphic abuse of the 18-month-old boy. They also highlight the incredible police work used to track McCormick down. According to the arrest warrant for 27-year-old Sean McCormick, police were led to him after a child pornography bust in Boston last November. During that bust, detectives found a video of a man, later identified as McCormick, raping what appeared to be an 11-month-old boy. It was later determined he was 18 months old at the time. Documents say the boy's hands were bound to his legs by electrical tape, but the rest of the details are too graphic to share. Throughout the 3-minute and 15-second long video, the baby can be heard crying. Police say at times the cries were muffled by McCormick's hand or tape. During an 11-month-long investigation, police used clues from that video to determine where and when the abuse took place. Police traced an episode of Family Matters and commercials playing in the background to March 28, 2009. Detectives also traced the furniture and a bathroom vanity pattern to room 221 in the Bakersfield Best Inn. Officers believe McCormick was staying with a family friend in Bakersfield at the time and took their baby to the hotel during the night without them knowing. Meantime, here in Colorado Springs, police were investigating McCormick for messages he sent to an undercover police officer in a chat room under the screen name Toddlers. On June 8, 2010, Colorado Springs police searched McCormick's Black Forest home on Vesey Circle and found 4,000 images and 365 videos of suspected child pornography. A folder was also found on his computer labeled My Kids that contained pictures and videos of the victim from the hotel. Documents say McCormick was released from Colorado State custody just last week. McCormick is now in federal custody and facing 1 count of sexual exploitation of a child. He is due in court in Denver tomorrow morning and faces extradition to California. Nikki.